This is the emergency alert system. Please stand by for an official message from the United States government. This is not a test. This is the emergency alert system. At 23:04 Eastern Standard Time, the United States suffered confirmed nuclear impacts on Washington, D.C., San Antonio, Omaha, and Jacksonville. Additional detonations were recorded in Los Angeles and Pittsburgh. The National Command Authority has authorized immediate retaliatory measures. Strategic command assets are fully mobilized. All citizens are instructed to remain in place. This is not a test.
You're still listening to WQXR emergency broadcast coverage. I'm required to repeat what you just heard, but I need to say this for anyone still listening closely. That's 6 cities. 6. And they said confirmed, as if we hadn't already felt the ground shake. Anyone still listening in the shelters? That's the official list, but 6 for a nuclear strike meant to cripple the U.S.? That number feels wrong.
Attention. U.S. retaliatory forces have been authorized to engage designated targets. Primary attribution is assigned to the Russian Federation. Launch vectors analyzed by NORAD confirm polar route trajectory consistent with Russian silos. Repeat. This is a Russian strike. U.S. retaliatory measures are active.
Polar route. That's what they're hanging it on. But the flight times, some of those detonations came nearly 20 minutes later than the first. Multiple launch points, or something else. And 6 warheads? If Moscow wanted annihilation, they'd fire 60, not 6.
Civil defense networks report shelters at capacity in affected zones. Citizens outside designated shelters are advised to remain underground, in basements, or reinforced structures. Fallout advisories are in effect for the Mid-Atlantic, Gulf Coast, and portions of the Midwest. Do not attempt travel. Do not use telecommunication networks. Remain silent and remain inside.
Remain silent. Did you hear that? That's not a normal line. Why would they add that? Maybe they don't want chatter clogging the bands, or maybe they don't want us comparing notes.
Attention. NATO Article 5 has been invoked. Allied forces are mobilizing in response to confirmed Russian aggression. This is a coordinated defensive action. Citizens are reminded, the United States remains in full control of its retaliatory arsenal. Additional strikes against enemy targets are underway. Remain sheltered. Radiation risk outside designated safe zones is critical.
Full control. They want us to believe everything's tidy. But we only lost 6 cities. Terrible, yes, but not civilization ending. And if Russia really fired, why stop there? Why give us time to breathe? Unless it wasn't Russia at all.
U.S. Strategic Command confirms multiple successful launches of American counterforce strikes. Targets designated: Russian Federation Central Command sites, missile fields, and naval bases. Estimated impact: 22 minutes. Citizens are reminded: this is a justified defensive retaliation. The United States does not initiate first strikes. Remain calm, remain sheltered, await further updates.
Did you catch that? The U.S. does not initiate first strikes. They're defending their record in the middle of this. Why? Who are they trying to convince, us or themselves?
Strategic Command advises all shelters to prepare for extended confinement. Fallout conditions will worsen over the next 24 hours. Civilian broadcast networks will remain under federal override until stability is restored. This channel will continue transmitting verified information. Do not attempt to access unauthorized frequencies. Doing so may jeopardize your safety.
Unauthorized frequencies. That's new. You're sealed in a concrete box, and the one lifeline you're allowed is what they hand you. Convenient, isn't it?
Radiation levels remain elevated in metropolitan blast zones. Contamination expected across eastern seaboard. Reports of power grid collapse in multiple states. Stand by for controlled information release.
Controlled release, not updates, not broadcasts. Release, like rationed food. They're telling us what to eat and how much, and we're supposed to swallow.
Citizens are advised to remain underground for no less than 72 hours. Retaliatory operations continue. Repeat. The Russian Federation is responsible for the attacks against the United States. The United States Armed Forces will respond with decisive strength. This concludes the current update. Further messages will follow.
And there it is again. Russia, Russia, Russia. But the math doesn't fit, the numbers don't fit, and somewhere, someone knows it. We're locked down, silenced, staring at concrete walls. And the only voice left insists on a single truth. Maybe it's the truth, or maybe it's the story they need us to believe, while something darker waits outside.
This is the emergency alert system. At this time, U.S. Strategic Command confirms successful launch of retaliatory measures. Multiple intercontinental ballistic missiles are in flight toward designated targets within the Russian Federation. Estimated impact: 12 to 14 minutes. NATO Article 5 remains in full effect. Allied forces have mobilized to respond collectively. All civilians are ordered to maintain immediate sheltering protocols. Do not attempt to evacuate. Do not attempt to communicate outside approved channels. The Department of Homeland Security advises all shelters to extend confinement duration beyond 72 hours. Fallout conditions are expected to worsen as retaliatory impacts occur overseas. Radiation plumes will shift eastward across the Atlantic over the next 48 hours. Citizens are instructed to secure all ventilation systems, water sources, and food supplies. Repeat: secure ventilation systems immediately.
So now the air itself turns against us.
Attention. Confirmed NATO strikes are underway. Allied assets are engaging Russian naval fleets in the North Atlantic and Black Sea regions. Air defense systems across Europe are operating at maximum readiness. Civilian populations in NATO member states are under identical confinement orders. This is a collective defense posture. Remain indoors, remain underground, remain silent. NORAD confirms additional missile launches have been detected. Current assessment identifies launch points consistent with Russian silo fields. National Command Authority affirms this as evidence of continued Russian aggression. Citizens are reminded: attribution is certain. Responsibility lies with the Russian Federation. U.S. retaliation is justified and proportional.
Certainty comes easy over the airwaves.
Radiation levels in Washington, D.C. remain critical. Residual fires are spreading across affected districts. San Antonio shelters report power loss. Emergency generators are being deployed. Federal coordination continues. All regions are under martial law. Travel bans remain absolute. Curfew is permanent until further notice. Attention. The United Kingdom, France, Germany, and Poland have confirmed retaliatory missile launches in support of NATO's Article 5 commitment. Strike packages are in flight toward Russian military assets. Global defensive operations are active. Citizens across NATO territories are ordered to maintain their shelters.
First, it was 6 missiles. Now the world answers with hundreds.
National Emergency Medical Coordination reports mass casualty levels exceeding capacity in blast zones. Field triage is ongoing where possible. Most efforts have ceased due to radiation exposure. Medical personnel are prioritized for shelter access. Citizens should not seek hospitals or clinics. These facilities are inoperative. Remain where you are. Do not leave shelters. Radiation spread is projected across the eastern seaboard by morning. Midwest fallout exposure expected within 48 hours. All food and water reserves must remain sealed. Do not consume unprotected supplies. Exposure to external environments is fatal. Repeat. Exposure is fatal.
Fatal. Fatal. And yet, he sounds so calm.
Strategic Command confirms American retaliatory impacts will occur within 6 minutes. Target sites include Russian missile fields, naval installations, and central command locations. Citizens are reminded, remain in place. Federal authorities have control of the situation. Repeat, federal control is absolute. Fallout shelters nationwide are to remain sealed until official clearance is given. Attempts to breach containment will result in exposure and death. Emergency services cannot respond. Remain sheltered. Await instructions.
Instructions are easy to give when no one's left to answer back.
This concludes the current update. United States Strategic Command is executing justified defensive retaliation against Russian Federation targets. NATO remains unified. Citizens are secure in shelters. Additional updates will follow. Remain calm, remain silent, remain alive. This is the Emergency Alert System. U.S. Strategic Command confirms that retaliatory strikes against the Russian Federation have reached target. Initial impact reports indicate successful detonation on enemy command infrastructure, missile fields, and naval bases. NATO coordination continues. Allied retaliatory strikes are ongoing. All U.S. citizens are ordered to remain within shelters. Fallout conditions remain critical. Fallout plume mapping has been updated. Radiation spread now confirmed across the Mid-Atlantic, Gulf Coast, and Great Lakes regions. Citizens are instructed to remain sealed for a minimum of 1 week. Repeat, minimum confinement is now 1 week.
1 week, and that's just the minimum.
Emergency Command advises that further Russian launches are possible. NORAD continues monitoring for additional trajectories. Citizens must not assume the attack is concluded. This is an ongoing threat environment.
Ongoing, but only 6 missiles ever struck us.
Attention. U.S. Armed Forces confirm readiness status across all remaining nuclear assets. Federal government continuity protocols are operational. Citizens are advised that civilian leadership remains intact. National Command Authority is fully functional. The chain of command is unbroken.
Funny how they insist on that.
Reports indicate widespread communications failure across eastern seaboard states. Cellular and internet networks are non-functional. Civilian broadcasts remain under emergency override. All verified information will be transmitted exclusively through this system. Do not attempt to access alternate frequencies.
Only one voice left, and it never falters.
Strategic Command confirms ongoing NATO coordination. Additional strike packages are in transit to secondary targets. Allied forces report successful intercepts of Russian submarines. Citizens are reminded. Retaliation is justified. Russia bears full responsibility. Russia bears full responsibility. Russia bears full responsibility. Radiation spikes recorded in the Midwest suggest secondary atmospheric effects. Contamination expected in Kansas, Missouri, and Illinois within 36 hours. Shelters in these areas must prepare for long-term confinement. Food and water rationing should begin immediately.
They keep naming regions, but never casualties, never numbers.
This is the emergency alert system. Confirmation received. Russian Federation retaliatory capacity reduced. Command and control targets eliminated. Probability of further launches assessed as minimal. Citizens are advised to maintain current shelter protocols until instructed otherwise.
Minimal isn't none.
All medical facilities remain overwhelmed. Fatalities are extensive. Civilian triage is no longer possible. Citizens should not expect external assistance. Survival is dependent on compliance with shelter instructions. NATO allies confirm additional retaliatory detonations across Russian territory. Initial reports indicate widespread destruction of infrastructure. Command assures, operations are targeted at military objectives only. Civilian casualties are unverified. This concludes the current interval. Updates will follow.
Unverified. Always unverified.
This is the emergency alert system. Citizens are instructed to remain in their designated shelters. Do not exit until further instructions are given. Fallout levels remain critical across the eastern United States. Atmospheric contamination persists. Reports confirm secondary detonations across Eastern Europe. NATO assets continue counterforce measures against Russian Federation launch sites. Civilian impact is unverified. Repeat, civilian impact remains unverified.
Always unverified.
Citizens should be aware, power failures have affected portions of the continental grid. Emergency systems are functional. Government continuity is confirmed. The United States remains operational. Strategic Command reports successful neutralization of additional Russian submarines. NATO aircraft continue patrol over the North Atlantic and Arctic sectors. Probability of further Russian launches remains minimal. Minimal.
If it's minimal, why do they keep repeating it?
Fallout projections revised. Midwest and southern states will experience significant contamination within 48 hours. Citizens in these zones must remain sealed for an indefinite period. Prepare rations accordingly. Reports of civilian unrest have been noted in multiple sectors. Unauthorized attempts to breach shelter perimeters are considered fatal. Fatal. Citizens are ordered to comply with all confinement directives. Non-compliance risks contamination.
Fatal either way.
Medical services remain unavailable. Emergency triage protocols suspended. Citizens are reminded, no rescue attempts will be made. Repeat, no rescue attempts will be made. This is the emergency alert system. Continuity of civilian leadership is intact. The National Command Authority is fully operational. The chain of command remains unbroken. Order and stability persist.
They said the same thing 2 hours ago, almost word for word.
Citizens are warned. False transmissions may circulate. Do not trust unauthorized signals. Only the emergency alert system is verified. Repeat, only this channel is verified.
What if this is the false one?
Strategic Command reports multiple long-range launches initiated against Russian Federation targets. Initial radar telemetry confirms successful departure. Impact confirmation is pending. Repeat, impact confirmation is pending. Fallout monitoring indicates rising contamination levels across the Great Plains. Citizens must maintain strict shelter procedures. Do not break seal. Survival depends on compliance.
Compliance is survival. That's all they ever say.
Strategic assessments indicate Russian defensive capacity is degrading. Civilian impact remains unknown. NATO operations are expected to continue until deterrence objectives are achieved. Citizens are advised. Retaliatory operations are active. Fallout plume modeling is unreliable beyond 72 hours. Citizens should prepare for extended shelter duration. Food and water conservation is mandatory.
Extended, mandatory, indefinite.
This is the emergency alert system. This is not a test. We are continuing to provide updates on the retaliatory operations now underway. United States Strategic Command confirms that intercontinental ballistic missiles launched from secure sites earlier this cycle are now entering their terminal descent phase. Estimated impact: within minutes. Citizens are advised to remain in their designated shelters. Do not attempt to exit. Fallout and radiological monitoring data will follow after confirmation. Remain calm. Await instructions.
Terminal phase. That's far longer than expected flight time. Something's off. Just listen carefully.
Update from Strategic Command. Counterstrike trajectories confirm successful continuation. Missiles are approaching the following areas: Moscow, St. Petersburg, Murmansk, Kaliningrad, Novosibirsk, Yekaterinburg. Impact time now estimated at less than 5 minutes. Civil authorities will issue monitoring advisories after confirmation. Again, this is not a test. Citizens are to remain sheltered. Radiation spread forecasts are in preparation. Fallout advisories will follow. Under no circumstances should shelter be abandoned before official clearance. Estimated blast radii exceed 5 miles for each strike. Repeat. Detonation yield estimated at
Moscow, Murmansk, Kaliningrad, but only 6? Why only 6? Why so few? If this was a true counterstrike, why not more? None of this.
impact sequence in progress. National Command Authority confirms this is the authorized retaliation for the missile attack against the United States. Detonations imminent. All shelters remain in lockdown until further notice. Radiation control networks are being activated. Monitoring will begin once atmospheric data is stable. Citizens are urged to conserve water, conserve power, and maintain silence on all non-essential communications. Repeat. Maintain shelter integrity.
Unless it wasn't Russia at all.
Detonation confirmation sequence now commencing. Initial seismic data incoming. Stand by. Repeat. Stand by. United States Geological Survey monitoring stations are registering. Impact confirmed. Over. Moscow. Shockwave monitoring. High altitude.
They're not even confirming. They're just reading numbers. Look at the time delays. None of this adds up.
This is the emergency alert system. Detonations are radiological monitoring. All shelters remain. This is not impact confirmed. Multiple sites. Radiological spread. Fallout expected. Shelter in place. Do not confirm detonation over Russian territory.
What the hell is going on?
This is the emergency alert system. This message is transmitted on behalf of the United States government from an auxiliary transmitter facility. If you are hearing this, primary networks are no longer operational. This is not a test. Confirmed data. Nuclear detonations have occurred. Multiple targets across the northern hemisphere have been struck. Fallout clouds are spreading eastward. Initial impact zones remain uninhabitable. Radiological saturation exceeds survivable limits in several metropolitan areas. This system is now operating in survival mode. Updates will be provided at irregular intervals. Citizens in shelters are instructed to remain underground. Do not attempt surface activity until clearance levels are announced. This message will repeat. Environmental monitoring reports a significant reduction in solar radiation reaching the surface. Ash and particulate matter are blocking daylight across wide regions. This phenomenon will persist for weeks, possibly months. Agricultural failure is anticipated. Power grids have sustained critical disruption. Fuel and supply lines are no longer operational. You are advised to ration all consumables immediately. Water should be filtered and boiled before use. If no heat source is available, use purification tablets. Do not consume exposed rainwater, snow, or ash deposits. Radiation levels remain highly variable. This is the emergency alert system. Survival instructions continue. Medical services are overwhelmed or non-functional in most regions. Emergency response units cannot be deployed. Citizens must provide first aid within their shelters. Use clean cloth, alcohol, or iodine if available. Avoid unnecessary contact with others showing symptoms of radiation sickness. Expect power blackouts to continue indefinitely. Communication lines are degraded. Official transmissions may cease without notice. If this occurs, maintain shelter discipline and conserve all resources. Assume that re-establishment of national command structures will take months, not weeks. Repeat. Remain sheltered. Do not exit. Do not travel. Await clearance. Atmospheric conditions indicate long-term disruption. Temperatures are dropping. Crops will fail. Starvation risk is high. If you are in possession of seeds, preserved grains, or canned food, protect them. They may represent the only viable means of survival. Remain underground. Prepare for extended isolation. Government continuity sites remain undisclosed. National Command Authority is secure. Civilian populations are to maintain shelter protocols until contacted. There will be no evacuation. There will be no relocation. Movement above ground is prohibited. This message will repeat. Daylight hours will remain darkened. Ash clouds continue to expand. Precipitation is contaminated. Do not touch snow, rain, or soil. Radiation levels remain unstable. Underground shelters remain the only survivable locations. Exposure equals death. Repeat. Exposure equals death. All communication should be limited to emergency use only. Preserve battery power. Preserve light. Preserve heat. This is the emergency alert system. Survival mode is active. Multiple nuclear detonations confirmed. Fallout spreading. Surface uninhabitable. Remain underground. Ration supplies. Avoid exposure. Do not attempt travel. Await further instruction. This message will repeat. This message will repeat. This message will repeat.